In just 47 seconds, one Kentucky congressman with a background in constitutional law asked FBI Director Kash Patel the simplest question imaginable about CIA intelligence files that triggered the most shocking admission in congressional hearing history. Rep. Thomas Massie didn't need classified briefings or insider sources. He asked one direct question about interagency coordination that Patel couldn't deflect without revealing a massive intelligence cover-up that had been hidden from Congress for over 5 years. Cameras captured every micro-expression as Patel's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, panic, resignation, before he gave an answer that left the entire House Oversight Committee in stunned silence. Even Republican members who had been defending the FBI director moments earlier sat speechless. What did Patel admit about CIA involvement in the Epstein case that made seasoned congressmen audibly gasp and immediately call for emergency classified briefings? April 15th to 10:25, 3:17 p.m., room 254 of the Rayburn House office building. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through tall windows, as what should have been routine FBI budget oversight was about to become the most explosive intelligence revelation in congressional history. Thomas Massie sat with the quiet intensity of an engineer-turned-congressman who had built his reputation on asking uncomfortable questions that exposed government overreach. Navy suit, understated, but his preparation meticulous, as he reviewed notes that would soon detonate the carefully constructed wall between federal agencies. At the witness table, FBI Director Kash Patel projected the confident authority of someone who believed his intelligence background made him immune to congressional fishing expeditions. Dark suit pressed to federal perfection, FBI badge positioned with bureaucratic pride, briefcase containing what he assumed were standard talking points about budget allocations and operational priorities. Behind him sat 6 FBI legal advisors, 3 DOJ liaisons, and 1 representative from the Director of National Intelligence Office. Their presence was supposed to ensure that no classified information would be inadvertently disclosed during routine oversight questioning. The hearing had been proceeding normally for over 2 hours. Committee members asked predictable questions about FBI budget priorities, counterterrorism operations, and domestic security initiatives. Patel had provided equally predictable responses about operational security, ongoing investigations, and the need for congressional support of federal law enforcement missions. The atmosphere was professional, but routine. Exactly the kind of bureaucratic theater that Massie had learned to navigate during his years exposing government waste and constitutional violations. But Massie had spent the previous weekend reviewing intelligence community organizational charts and interagency coordination protocols, looking for gaps in oversight that might reveal hidden operations. His engineering background had taught him that complex systems always had weak points, where pressure could expose structural flaws. As he studied the relationships between FBI, CIA, NSA, and other intelligence agencies, one question kept nagging at him about coordination that seemed to violate traditional agency boundaries. At exactly 3:17 p.m., Chairman James Comer recognized Congressman Massie for his questioning period. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes. The time allocation seemed routine, but Massie would need less than 1 minute to trigger the most shocking intelligence disclosure in modern congressional history. Massie opened with his characteristic directness, his voice carrying the calm precision of someone who had successfully challenged federal agencies for over a decade. Director Patel, thank you for your testimony today about FBI operations and interagency coordination. I have a straightforward question about intelligence sharing protocols. Patel nodded confidently. Intelligence sharing questions were safe territory that allowed him to discuss general policies without revealing specific operational details. Congressman, Patel replied with practiced authority, the FBI works closely with our intelligence community partners to ensure information sharing that protects national security while maintaining appropriate operational boundaries between domestic and foreign intelligence operations. His response was textbook bureaucratic deflection, comprehensive enough to sound substantive while revealing absolutely nothing specific. I appreciate that general framework, Massie said with slight edge to his voice. But I want to ask about one specific case. Director Patel, Have you personally reviewed any CIA files related to Jeffrey Epstein? The question was simple, direct, and completely unexpected. The room fell silent as everyone processed what Massie had just asked. CIA files on Epstein would suggest intelligence agency involvement in a case that was supposed to be purely domestic criminal investigation. Patel's confident expression immediately shifted to confusion and alarm. This wasn't a question he had prepared for, and the implications were staggering. CIA involvement in domestic criminal cases would violate fundamental intelligence community boundaries and raise constitutional questions about domestic surveillance. Congressman, Patel began hesitantly, I'm not sure I understand the premise of your question. The Jeffrey Epstein investigation was a domestic criminal matter handled by federal prosecutors and FBI investigators according to standard law enforcement protocols. But Massie wasn't accepting deflection. Director, that's not what I asked. I asked specifically whether you have personally reviewed CIA files related to Jeffrey Epstein. It's a yes or no question. The directness was devastating. Massie had eliminated all bureaucratic escape routes and demanded a specific answer about intelligence agency coordination that Patel couldn't discuss without revealing classified operations. Congressman, Patel replied with increasing discomfort, interagency information sharing involves complex protocols and classification levels that cannot be discussed in open congressional hearings without potentially compromising sensitive intelligence sources and methods. Classification levels, Massie repeated with growing intensity. Director, are you saying that CIA files on Jeffrey Epstein exist but are too classified for congressional oversight? The follow-up question was even more damaging. Patel had inadvertently confirmed that classified CIA files on Epstein existed while claiming congressional oversight couldn't access them. Congressman, I'm not confirming or denying the existence of any specific intelligence materials, but any interagency coordination would follow appropriate classification and sharing protocols established by the intelligence community. Patel's evasion was becoming more obvious and desperate. Massie sensed weakness and pressed harder. Director Patel, Massie said with increasing directness, let me ask this differently. As FBI director, do you have security clearance to access CIA operational files? The question seemed innocuous, but was actually a trap. If Patel confirmed he had CIA access clearance, it would raise questions about why he was evading questions about Epstein files. If he denied access, it would contradict his role as FBI director. Congressman, FBI directors maintain appropriate security clearances for interagency coordination, but access to specific intelligence materials depends on operational need to know and compartmented security protocols. Another bureaucratic non-answer that confirmed nothing while revealing everything. Massie was now certain that Patel was hiding something significant. Need to know protocols, Massie said with prosecutorial precision. Director, did you personally determine that you had operational need to know regarding CIA files on Jeffrey Epstein? The question was a perfect trap. Any answer would either confirm that CIA Epstein files existed and that Patel had accessed them, or would reveal that Patel was operating as FBI director without knowledge of relevant intelligence. Patel was now visibly sweating, clearly recognizing that he was being systematically cornered by someone who understood intelligence protocols better than expected. Congressman, any determination about operational need to know would be made through appropriate intelligence community channels, according to established interagency coordination procedures that maintain compartmented security for sensitive intelligence operations. The evasion was now bordering on incoherent. Massie realized he had Patel completely off balance and decided to ask the question that would force a direct answer. Director Patel, Massie said with quiet intensity, I'm going to ask you one final time, and I want a direct yes or no answer. Have you, as FBI director, personally reviewed CIA intelligence files that contain information about Jeffrey Epstein's activities? The room was now completely silent. Every person in the hearing room understood that this was a moment of truth that could reveal massive intelligence community coordination in one of the most sensitive criminal cases in American history. Patel sat silent for nearly 10 seconds, visibly struggling with how to respond. His legal advisors were frantically whispering behind him, but he couldn't consult them without making his evasion obvious to television cameras broadcasting live to millions of viewers. Finally, Patel looked directly at Massie and gave an answer that shocked everyone in the room. "Yes, Congressman, I have reviewed CIA files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and those files contain intelligence that would fundamentally change public understanding of his operations and connections." The admission was explosive beyond anyone's expectations. The FBI director had just confirmed that the CIA possessed intelligence files on Epstein that contained information beyond what had been publicly disclosed. The room erupted. Committee members started talking over each other. Television cameras captured the chaos as seasoned congressmen realized they had just witnessed an unprecedented intelligence disclosure. Intelligence that would change public understanding. Massie repeated with growing momentum. "Director, what specifically did those CIA files reveal about Epstein's operations that differs from public reports?" But Patel had realized his mistake and was now trying desperately to contain the damage. "Congressman, I cannot discuss specific intelligence content in an open hearing, but I can confirm that interagency coordination revealed information that was not part of the public criminal investigation." The partial retraction was too late. Patel had already confirmed that the CIA possessed secret intelligence about Epstein that had been withheld from public criminal proceedings, information not part of the public investigation. Massie pressed with relentless logic. "Director, are you saying the CIA possessed evidence about Jeffrey Epstein that was never provided to federal prosecutors?" The question struck at the heart of intelligence community. Coordination and potential obstruction of justice. If the CIA had evidence relevant to criminal proceedings but had not shared it with prosecutors, it would represent a massive violation of legal protocols. Patel was now in full panic mode, realizing that his shocking admission had opened a door he couldn't close. "Congressman, CIA intelligence operations are governed by different legal frameworks than FBI criminal investigations, and information sharing between agencies follows complex protocols that are designed to protect intelligence sources while supporting law enforcement objectives." The explanation was bureaucratic gibberish that actually made the situation worse by confirming that different agencies were operating under different legal standards regarding the same case. "Different legal frameworks," Massie said with devastating clarity. "Director? Are you saying the CIA and FBI were investigating Jeffrey Epstein under different legal authorities and not sharing information?" The follow-up question was perfect. Massie had identified a fundamental breakdown in interagency coordination that suggested either criminal incompetence or deliberate compartmentalization. At this point, Patel's advisors were frantically trying to get his attention, but he was too focused on trying to control the damage from his unprecedented admission. "Congressman, intelligence community coordination involves complex relationships between domestic and foreign intelligence operations that cannot be simplified into criminal investigation frameworks without compromising ongoing intelligence operations." The response was a complete admission that intelligence agencies were operating parallel investigations with different objectives and different legal constraints. Social media exploded as viewers realized they were watching the FBI director confirm that the CIA had secret files on Jeffrey Epstein that contained intelligence withheld from criminal prosecutors. CIA Epstein files began trending alongside Massie exposes and Patel admits. The story was erupting beyond the hearing room into a constitutional crisis about intelligence agency coordination and criminal justice. Ongoing intelligence operations. Massie emphasized with prosecutorial precision. "Director, are you saying that CIA intelligence operations related to Jeffrey Epstein are still ongoing?" The question was devastating. If CIA operations related to Epstein were still active, it would suggest that his case involved ongoing intelligence matters rather than a concluded criminal investigation. Patel realized he had walked into another trap, but couldn't escape without confirming more classified information. "Congressman, I cannot discuss the operational status of any intelligence activities, but interagency coordination continues according to established intelligence community protocols." The non-denial confirmation was exactly what Massie needed. Patel had essentially admitted that intelligence operations related to Epstein were continuing years after his death. Continuing intelligence operations, Massie said with controlled fury. Director, how can the American people trust that Jeffrey Epstein's criminal associates are being properly prosecuted when CIA intelligence operations are apparently more important than criminal justice? The question struck at the fundamental issue of intelligence versus law enforcement priorities. Massie had exposed a systemic problem where intelligence operations were potentially obstructing criminal prosecution. Congressman Patel replied desperately. The FBI remains committed to pursuing all criminal matters according to law enforcement priorities, while maintaining appropriate coordination with intelligence community partners according to established legal frameworks. The response was meaningless bureaucratic language that avoided addressing Massie's fundamental question about conflicting priorities. Director Patel, Massie said with final precision, will you commit today to providing this committee with a classified briefing about CIA intelligence files related to Jeffrey Epstein and their relationship to ongoing criminal investigations? The request was perfectly reasonable and impossible to refuse without confirming that intelligence agencies were deliberately withholding information from congressional oversight. Patel sat in silence for nearly 15 seconds, clearly consulting with his advisors while television cameras captured his obvious discomfort. Congressman, any classified briefings would need to be coordinated with appropriate intelligence community leadership and would be subject to established congressional oversight protocols. The evasive response was actually an admission that classified briefings were possible, but that Patel didn't want to provide them. I'll take that as a yes, Massie said with satisfaction. I yield back my time. The exchange had lasted exactly 47 seconds from Massie's first question to Patel's shocking admission, but those 47 seconds had fundamentally changed congressional understanding of intelligence community involvement in one of the most sensitive criminal cases in American history. The aftermath was immediate and explosive. Within hours, Chairman Comer announced that the House Oversight Committee would hold emergency classified briefings with CIA Director William Burns and Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Mark Warner called for joint congressional investigation into interagency coordination failures. That evening, as America processed the most shocking intelligence disclosure in congressional hearing history, one thing was crystal clear. Rep. Thomas Massie had accomplished something unprecedented. He had used simple, direct questioning to force the FBI director to admit that the CIA possessed secret intelligence about Jeffrey Epstein that had been withheld from criminal prosecutors and congressional oversight. The 47 seconds that revealed a massive intelligence cover-up would be remembered as the moment when congressional oversight proved that even the most classified operations couldn't escape accountability when someone asked the right questions. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't classified clearance or insider knowledge. It's the skill to ask simple questions that force corrupt officials to choose between lying to Congress or revealing the truth they've been hiding. When intelligence agencies become more powerful than criminal justice, it takes someone like Thomas Massie to expose the truth through direct questions that can't be deflected. If this story revealed how intelligence agencies can obstruct criminal justice, don't just watch in silence. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, where congressional oversight exposes government corruption and simple questions reveal complex conspiracies. Hit the notification bell. The next direct question might expose corruption in your own intelligence community. What would you do if you discovered intelligence agencies were withholding evidence from criminal prosecutors? Drop a comment below. This dramatized story is inspired by real events and public figures. All dialogue and incidents are fictionalized for commentary and educational purposes. This is not intended to defame, but to explore themes of intelligence community accountability, congressional oversight, and the relationship between intelligence operations and criminal justice in American democracy.